All right. You ready, baby? What's up, guys? Hive Consultant here. Just out taking a little walk with my dog, Lola. Hope everybody's doing well. And it's been one of those weeks where I've had a couple of things on my mind. One of the things I've been thinking about lately is kind of piggybacking on my last video. If you haven't watched my last video, go and check it out. It is called Why Hive and Staking Blockchains will explode during the next bull run and financial crisis. But one of the topics that I touched on was the fact that when many people are going to be unemployed and they are not necessarily going to have money to invest, Hive may be one of the most popular entry points into the crypto space. You know, because then they're not worried about investing money, they're worried about investing their time. But I talked on that a little bit yesterday. My gimbal is kind of acting funny. But yeah, that was the video I did last. And one of the things I was talking to my wife about was, you know, when you think about Hive from an investment standpoint, being that it's social media, I think it's a great buy. But in general, when you think about Hive, Ethereum, Bitcoin, especially Bitcoin, because Bitcoin's, you know, trying to be money. And I've heard like Anthony, what's it called? Pompliano, Pumpcast, and even Andreas. A few different people in the Bitcoin space have pointed out it's not about investing money, investing dollars into Bitcoin and seeing what your dollar return is. You have to think about it like real estate. Like on any blockchain that you find valuable, what is the real estate that you own on that blockchain? If there's only 21 million Bitcoins, you know, what's your number of Bitcoins? What's your number of Satoshis? And while technically you could sell any product or service for Bitcoin, or any crypto for that matter, and earn it, Hive truly is different in the sense that it's the only blockchain, or one of the few blockchains, where you don't invest money. You're not investing capital per se in the form of goods or services. You're only investing your time. Your time and your effort. And you know, there's a lot of good content creators out there. Honestly, I'm not a content creator. I've never considered myself a content creator. If you look at any of my past Hive, well, this is the only Hive account. If you look at any of my past Steam accounts, because I've had 2 or 3, you know, I'm just not necessarily a content creator. And the content I do produce is not very well the most popular, simply because a lot of it is jiu-jitsu. And as much as I've tried to attract other jiu-jitsu people to the blockchain, you know, they're still not seeing the value, mainly because if they make a lot of money on YouTube, etc., they consider mainstream social media is more valuable as far as their use of their time. And I get it, from growing a business standpoint, that makes sense. But there's a lot of jiu-jitsu people out there who are content creators, especially on YouTube, Instagram, video content, video instructionals, tutorials, etc. But yeah. So I'm not really a content creator. but I am putting forth the effort, because what I was talking to my wife about was, over the years, I've spent a lot of time and effort and money learning about Bitcoin, blockchain, etc. But sometimes life gives you certain circumstances where you just don't have additional funds, additional money to invest. And because we're going through the immigration process right now, it's just not something that's a very good thing for us as far as additional funds and money to invest. But I told her, Hive is just one of those things where start creating content, start talking about anything, everything. You don't have to be a professional content creator to enjoy Hive. You don't have to be a professional content creator to earn your real estate on the Hive blockchain. Come on, Lola. But yeah, that was something I was thinking about. So I was asking her about possibly her and me doing a podcast together. I told her, one day if we want to own a home, wouldn't it be cool if we went from Hive to home? If you could earn enough Hive that in the future you could sell a portion of your Hive and actually buy a house. I mean, it's not impossible. Especially when you consider the all-time high of Steam was around $8, I believe. It's either $7 or $8 and some change. I mean, it only takes a couple thousand Hive before that equals some pretty big bucks. So if you wanted to sell half, I suppose you'd have to earn quite a bit. But yeah, that's just something I was thinking about, when people complain about, I don't have money to invest. Okay, but do you have time? Do you have effort? Do you have the drive to provide some sort of value in exchange for cryptocurrency? It doesn't have to be Hive. You could sell anything and everything for any cryptocurrency. All right, let's go, Lola. So yeah, that was one of the things I've been thinking about a lot recently. Other than that, let's see what else has been going on. For me, one of the big things I noticed that's been in the news cycle has been the new Cardano Shelley update. I'm a pretty big fan of DPoS change in general. I think proof of stake, specifically delegated proof of stake, is one of the best alternatives to proof of work blockchains. And I actually had the chance to meet Charles Hoskinson in Florida around 2014. I had lived down in the Clearwater, Tampa, Newport Richey area, and St. Peter's had a local Bitcoin meetup, and Charles Hoskinson just dropped in one night. So it's Charles Hoskinson and like less than 10 people. And we had to have sat there for probably 6 o'clock till about 11, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, at least 5 hours. And that 2014, this was the early days. And at that point, I had zero clue who Charles Hoskinson was. I had zero clue. I mean, I had to Google him, and it was pretty neat. He went around and talked to every single person at the table, and then we had a lot of one-on-one time with them. So yeah, I've kind of followed Charles Hoskinson since then. I mean, that was the early days, so he was just getting involved with the Ethereum. The Ethereum crowd sale hadn't even happened yet. One of the big things that was starting to become a discussion was the scaling issue in Bitcoin, the block size debate. So we got Charles's take on that. And this way, Lola. Pretty unique experience to meet someone that years later, I mean, he's larger than life. I mean, you'd have to throw him up there with Andreas and some of the bigger faces and names in the crypto space. And of course, you know, it's always been fun to watch his battles back and forth with Vitalik, people like Dan Larimer. And, you know, Vitalik is pretty out there. Dan Larimer is not the most social person, even though I like a lot of his work with Steam, EOS, BitShares. But yeah, Charles is a pretty unique dude. But yeah, you know, you have the Shelley update. A lot of people, since the last Bitcoin bull run in 2017. Let's go, Lola. Come on, follow me. You know, a lot of people got in on Cardano probably anywhere from, I think the first time I ever saw it listed on exchange, it was around 3 cents, maybe 4 cents. It wasn't much at all. And of course, you saw the huge run in 2017 when Bitcoin went up and all the alts followed. I mean, Cardano had like $1.38, $1.40, somewhere around there as an all-time high. And of course, like everything else, it corrects down during the bear market. This way, hey, come on. So, yeah, after years of waiting, it's finally exciting to see after the incentivized testnet, they finally have Shelley up. Cardano is going to become a more decentralized platform using Ouroboros, their version of DPoS. Exciting times. Which I think the true competition won't begin until later this year, once we see the next stage where you see the smart contracts. This way, Lola. And the tokenization, the ability to create tokens. But I have a feeling that'll come sooner than what we had to wait for Shelley. So yeah, that's been on my radar here recently. Just watching all the hoopla surrounding that Shelley update. I was at work today and I was reading some news. Lola was reading some news on some different possible low cap cryptos, and some of the ones I saw recently were some of the more privacy based anonymity tokens, and it got me to thinking, and I need to really look back on Steam. But with a quick Google search, and I probably should just search it on Hive in general, but a quick Google search of Hive and anonymous transactions or anonymity, you know, there's not a lot. So I was kind of thinking, like, how long will it be before we see a layer added to Hive that is the one down? Well, it's a benefit and a downfall. It's a benefit because it makes sending transactions to the correct person and not making a mistake by copy pasting a long public key address. But at the same time, depending on how well known your true identity is to your Hive identity, it's not the most private blockchain out there. And I was kind of thinking about, well, if you were going to have a layer to send anonymous Hive transactions, you know, how would you do that? What would it look like? And I'm supposing that you could use a smart contract, and all the usernames that are visible could send money into the smart contract, and the only come on. So you would send Hive into a smart contract, and of course on the other side the output would come out to the other person. Now there are some things that made me curious, because if it says Hive.consultant sent to Hive to a smart contract, how many other to Hive transactions are going to be out there to potentially match which username received 2 Hive tokens. So somewhere on the blockchain is going to show that you sent out 2 tokens. And whether it goes to another username or whether it goes to a smart contract of some sort, well, actually, even on Ethereum, each smart contract has an actual public key address. So I'm supposing a smart contract on Hive will also, Lola, will also have a username. Yeah, I think you have to have a large volume of transactions. And let's say you sent exactly 1,382 transactions, 1,382.786. You know, that's a very specific number. And I suppose the possibilities of someone not sending that exact amount might make it a little bit easier to track who received that amount. But yeah, there has to be a way. There's smart developers out there. But I do think that would be something that would definitely be beneficial to Hive. There are times where you might want to send payments, and one of Hive's greatest assets is having the no fees. I'm sure people would be willing to pay a small fee to send anonymous transactions. But compared to other blockchains, those fees will probably be much, much lower on Hive, even if you were to charge a smart contract transaction fee. But yeah, just something I was thinking about. But you know, I need to really do, Lola, don't mess with the cat. Lola, come on. Lola. But yeah, just something I was thinking about. There's gonna have to be a way to send anonymous transactions at some point on Hive. If I was smart enough to do it, I would already be doing it. But somebody out there, come on. But somebody out there needs to work on that. Hopefully there is someone out there already doing so. We have plenty of other stuff on Hive, like dice games, slot games. So, you know, some of these things, while we can always use more dApps on the Hive blockchain, it would be nice to see one that, to my knowledge, no one else is currently doing. So if anyone out there has any information or any idea how you would implement anonymous transactions on Hive, hit me up. Sound off in the comments below. I'd love to read about it. And like I said, I'll do some searches and see if there's anything out there that I'm not aware of already. So, what else is going on? I've been reading a lot about this coronavirus garbage. I have a friend who, a friend of a friend. I don't really know this guy as well, other than social media. But he runs a pretty well-known self-defense gym in North Carolina. And man, some of these states, whew, I think my gym was only closed down as far as going to work out and going to jiu-jitsu. We were only closed down for maybe a month and a half where I live. But yeah, his gym has been closed basically since March, April, May, June, July. And they're talking about adding on 2 more months before they'll allow gyms in North Carolina to open back up. I'm pretty sure that New York, New Jersey, you know, there's a lot of different states that have different rules. But man, some of these states, you know, it's kind of a weird thing that the government gets to choose specific businesses, specific types of businesses, what can be considered essential and open. And then one of the biggest things that could help people with their immune system and levels of depression and not using drugs, you basically ban these from being open. You know, that's a scary thing for those guys. You know, they need to make income. They need to take care of their families. It takes a long time to build a business like a gym, especially a martial arts gym. I mean, that's years and years and years of sacrifice to build up your business typically. Just like that, it's gone. I mean, these guys aren't going to last another couple months. And what people don't think about, I see so many people that feel like things are going back to normal. And maybe depending on where you live, Lola, hey, depending on where you live, maybe it does feel like you're going back to normal. Where I live is somewhat normal. And the thing is, you can't forget that not every location, not every state, not every city, and not every business, even if you live in North Carolina and everything else is opened up, but gyms are still closed. Like, you can't forget about those people. And I don't know, it's just a strange thing. And that got me thinking about a lot of the talk that you see is talking about schools opening. Come on, Lola. Good girl. You know, schools reopening, whether they should open, whether they should do classes from home over Zoom remotely. And hey, come on. Lola, come on. So in general, I was also thinking about the second wave. Will there be a second wave? And a lot of people say it's guaranteed. Now, I don't know whether there'll be a second wave of COVID, but I do believe no matter what, there could be a second wave of lockdowns. So regardless of what you do or don't believe on COVID, I think we're likely to see them try to do a second lockdown. Now, could it be over COVID? Could it be over social unrest due to financial implications? Or things around the election, more things around Black Lives Matter, Antifa, protests, etc. Who knows? But I just don't think this time in many places that lockdowns are going to be well received. I mean, you're talking about people who generally are voters, business owners. They have no real issues with government. They're not necessarily even libertarian or anarchist. ANCAPs. Come on, Lola. And I won't say it's entirely woke people up to these ideas, but it's definitely made people scratch their heads. It's definitely made people question things. I mean, you do see the politicizing of COVID between Democrats and Republicans, between Trump and the anti-Trump people. And I don't know if that's a good thing either, but the one positive I see coming out of this, it has made people question things more. It has made people question things like the censorship that we see on social media more. It has made people question things like the function of government, how much power should they have. And I think overall that's a good thing. Now, on the flip side of that, it's also brought to my attention how many people believe what they do believe about the government's power, how they should feel like they should take care of you, they should print all the money, they should pay for these things. Lola. Lola, come on. Hey. And, you know, people I didn't even realize in my life who I wouldn't call them like super statist by any means. In fact, a lot of them aren't necessarily the most political people. But it was amazing to me how all of a sudden they had all these opinions, and some of them were very pro-government, very pro-state, very, you know, pro-stimulus, pro-bailout. But at the same time, that's all they know. You can't really fault them for that. That's just the culture, not just America, but the entire world has lived in for hundreds of years. And most people don't have time in their day-to-day lives to think about these types of things, nor do they care. And they definitely don't like to think about things that challenge their worldview. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Lola, come on. It'll be interesting to see how all this plays out in the fall. Hopefully there won't be a second lockdown. And maybe there won't be like a national lockdown on a federal or national level. But it could just be something as big as, you know, some of the more hardcore states that have stayed locked down, maybe they'll continue to stay locked down. But I can't imagine the ones that open back up would consider a second lockdown. Where I live now, they didn't consider a second lockdown. They just tried to get all gung-ho on enforcing this mask issue, which was weird during the lockdown, which nobody here really paid attention to. A very small percentage of them truly went lockdown. You would go and you'd see like playgrounds wrapped up in yellow police tape, toys, places to work out in public, benches to sit on. All these things were wrapped up. Like, oh, you can't be in public. You can't do anything where you touch something in public. And then all of a sudden, we open back up from the lockdown, and all the tape is removed. So now you can touch everything, but now they want to enforce masks. And you know, they can't really enforce the mask. And while the lockdown wasn't truly honored here by most people, I would say the mask wearing is actually probably a much higher percentage here than what I expected. Now, there's still a lot of people that won't wear a mask, or they try to wear a mask as little as possible. But yeah, that's some things I've been thinking about lately as far as, are we gonna see a second lockdown? What's gonna happen going into the fall with the election? I'm pretty sure it's gonna become a mudslinging contest between the Democrats and Republicans. And you know, what worries me more than anything is the potential for violence, the potential for you know, violence to erupt in the streets, especially over something as silly as an election. Which I know to a lot of people, they don't think voting is silly, they don't think elections are silly. They super buy in hard to either the left or the right. And even if they aren't hardcore, you know, that's all they know. But yeah, it's been good seeing the bull run lately. And Bitcoin's had a nice bump. Ethereum and some of the alts have had a nice bump. I think we're starting to get primed. You know, if you look at the 2017 halving, it was really about February, or 2016 halving, it was really about February of 2017 before Bitcoin broke its all-time high. But I don't know. I was watching an interview last night or the day before, and you know, you have a few people in the Bitcoin space that are predicting the all-time high being broken early this year. And you know, that might seem a little bit odd because you're like, well, there's less volume, less liquidity in cash in many cases to pump into Bitcoin, pump into cryptos. But I don't know, you do have a lot of additional cash being created by the government in the form of these $1,200 stimulus checks, which we could see at least one, possibly two. I'm still predicting a second one right before election. Just my personal view, who knows if I'm right. But I bet you'd see a lot of $1,200 Coinbase transactions. A lot of them. Because people are looking for a way to hedge inflation, looking for a safety net, especially if they're smart. Now, some people are still in the traditional stock market. Some people are not as well off financially, and they really do have to use that 1200. But for the people out there who didn't really need the 1200, they were still working during the lockdown, business as usual. I know a lot of people invested that money in some sort of fashion. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But you have a lot of external factors this time around that you didn't have in 2017. I mean, you have the Fed printing trillions of dollars, potentially trillions and trillions more before this year is over. It may not take till February of 2021 or spring of 2021. I mean, 2021 still should be a huge year. And of course, that could be off too. You never know. But at the same time, it's one of those things where, depending on how these factors impact people emotionally. Lola, come on. Hey, let's go. Depending on how these external factors impact Bitcoin and cryptos for the rest of the year, you could potentially see a new all-time high, breaking the upper $19,000, almost $20,000 mark for Bitcoin. And I would be happy to see that, as would many in the crypto space. At the same time, it's sad because you got to think, if it breaks this all-time high again, and every 4 years after the halving cycle, you have higher highs and higher lows, that means you would never see Bitcoin below 20,000 again. So if you didn't have the chance to buy Bitcoin before the 1,300 all-time high, back when it was a couple $100, it drops from 1240, 1260, whatever it was in 2013, all the way back down to like 150 in the spring of 2016, right before the halving. I think it was like late winter, early spring. Lola, come on. Whew, you'll wish you had bought it back then. And I remember thinking that. And in this last one, you had $20,000 Bitcoin roughly. And you're like, dude, the previous all-time high was about 1,300. So it's not going to go below that, most likely. And where did it settle in? What, 3,200, 3,400? So if that trend keeps, you're talking about after this year, no matter how high Bitcoin goes, whether it's 50,000, 100,000, 250,000, we know the deal. We know how this 4-year cycle works. It will correct. It will consolidate. People will take profits. And people are going to want to buy in at a lower price point, including people who are already invested. We know the market is still small enough that whales can collude together and power dump so they can buy back in at a lower price point, getting more Bitcoin, more bang for their buck. But it's like I said at the beginning of this video, you need to really stop thinking in terms of investing and what's my buy-in price versus my sell price to get back into fiat, dollars, whatever. I mean, you really should look at it either, if you're going to look at it like that, I would say at least compare it, what was my buy-in in the price of gold or silver versus my sell back to gold or silver. But as far as the dollars, it should be a non-factor. Look at what they're doing to the US dollar right now. It should be a fucking non-factor. Why do you even care? Other than the fact you have to convert back to dollars to pay bills, why do you care? Not just the dollar, any fiat currency in the Western world and most of the rest of the world. You shouldn't care. The world is printing money. I don't know exactly how it's all going to play out, but you know it's not going to end well. This is truly going to probably push us to some sort of reset. Now, who knows? You can argue all day about what the reset is, but yeah, you shouldn't think about it in those terms anymore. And if you do, you should compare it to gold or silver, or at least in the blockchain space, compare it to something like DAI or Hive dollars, something that's pegged to the dollar mark. Lola, come on. And Lola, hey, come on, let's go. What you really should start to think about is, what is your real estate on the blockchains that you do value? If you value Bitcoin, how much Bitcoin do you own compared to the total market? Lola, come on. If you care about Hive, how much Hive do you own compared to the total market of Hive? And I suppose in like Bitcoin, it wouldn't be the total market. I guess you could compare it to what's the total circulating supply, but in general, with Bitcoin, you could just compare it to the total cap, the total supply cap. Come on. And yeah, that's something I'm trying to wrap my brain around, is getting used to thinking about it in those terms. What percentage of stake, of skin in the game, of real estate do you own on the blockchains that you value? All right. I think that's going to be it for tonight, guys. Just sharing some of my thoughts with you. Feel free to comment. Definitely give me a follow. If you like what I'm saying, what I'm talking about, definitely give me a like. Give me that upvote. And we will talk to you guys soon. Have a good night.